tell you the story now. It's a future me. Welcome, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're ready to begin.
Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, cherry berry berry bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam.
Shabbat Shalom, welcome everyone. Before we begin with the lighting of the Shabbat candles, I just wanted to welcome the newest rabbi in town, Rabbi Alter. We're so glad that you're here this evening. Oh, I forgot to warn you, they applaud. You haven't even done anything yet. We'll begin with the candle lighting, and I would like to invite Rebecca Tullman and Nina Kurian up to light the candles. Do you know how to do this thing? Do you know how to do this thing?
You're going to teach me how to use that? Touch the match to it? Is that like a newfangled Jewish thing? Ooh.
It has no wick. A miracle of light.
Can we do it in the other one?
Not supposed to, but go ahead. This one's stubborn.
We're cheating.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And we read together, please join me in the middle of the page on page 3. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Amen. Tell Becca to take hers. Yesher koach. Before we begin with Lecha Dodi, I wanted to share a brief kavanah. The kavanah is sort of to set an intention, and also because we're just getting to know each other, sort of tell you how I like to call pages and not call pages. So what I'll try to do is let you know what's coming up so that we don't have to interrupt in the music. So some of you probably know this. the reminder is that when we get to the page, which I'll call in a moment, we're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 5. And then when we reach verse 9 on page 21, we'll stand up and turn around to face the back of the room, to face the doors, to usher in the Sabbath bride into our sanctuary. Just as we have welcomed God's presence into this space, we will now welcome the Sabbath bride with a song composed by the mystics in Svat. Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'diber echad, Hishmiyanu elam yachad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, V'shem u'teferet v'litila, Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela. Lekrat Shabbat L'chuveni Lecha, Ki Mekor HaBracha, Merosh Mekedem Nesucha, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Techila. Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela.
Verse 5.
Hitoderi, hitoderi, kiva orech kumi ori, uri shudaberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, lekrat kala, b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, lekrat kala, b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateref ba'ala, gam b'simcha tu'ola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi, lekrat kala, b'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, Lekrat Kala, B'nai Shabbat Nekabela.
You may be seated. We turn to page 26 for the Reader's Kaddish. I think I wasn't supposed to tell you to be seated because I'm going to ask you to stand up again in a minute. So I'll give you a quick yes, please. And then since some of you already started, please rise for the Reader's Kaddish.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, Amen. B'yalma divrach irutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, uv'izman kol riv, v'miru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam U'lo Me'omaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitbar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudisha B'rechu, Le'olam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram be'alma, v'miru, Amen.
Page 28, the call to worship, Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed.
Please remain standing as we turn ahead to Shema, page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated. V'yahavta
Et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim leolechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeitiechem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem.
And thou shalt love.
Sure. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. And thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, when thou risest up, when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Seems like we're moving very quickly. We turn ahead to page 40 for Micha Mocha.
You good? Yep. Sorry, I'm not doing that one.
That's the one.
Lie, 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 lie. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ratahi lo dosei feled, no ratahi lo dosei feled. Malchutecha ra'u v'anecha, bokei hayom lifnei Moshe. Ze'eli anu ve'amnu, ze'eli avenu v'amnu. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Lai 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 lai.
And our last blessing after the Shema, or connected to the Shema, is a prayer for peace. We turn to page 43, 42, and 43 for Hapore Sukkot Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Hapore Sukkot Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Hapore Sukkot Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai Hapore Sukkot Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
This evening we'll continue with Vishamru, page 44. Are my twirlers ready? Okay.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את Shabbat, Lasod et Shabbat, Ledaretam Berit Olam.
Heshikoach. There were more twirlers than there were last week.
Yeah.
So I thought I was only going to have the front row. Before we move on, and I heard a woohoo about how fast we were going, I just want to take a few moments, and I promise it will only be a few moments, to offer a kavanah, an intention, before we rise to recite the Amidah. And some of this may be review for all of you or some of you, but I feel it bears repeating, especially because it's my first time leading from here. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Amidah, and through this kavanah, also tell you a little bit about me. Only the parts I want you to know. So the Amidah, which means standing, is a standing prayer, and it is also known as ha-tfilah, the prayer. That's how the rabbis refer to it in the Mishnah and in the Talmud, the ancient rabbis, not modern rabbis, but the ancient sages called it ha-tfilah, the, with a capital He. It's the central prayer of our liturgy, and what you might not realize, it's a kind of a hybrid prayer. It was a hybrid prayer even before we had hybrid services. So the reason it's a hybrid is because it's a mix of both public and private prayer. You're probably aware, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that we are to add our own personal private prayers at the end. But it's also part of the public liturgy, and we sing it aloud. It's fixed. It's part of the fixed liturgy, and there are specific things that we are supposed to say. But it's also unfixed. It's keva, it's fixed, and it's kavanah. It's full of personal and private intentions. So it really is a hybrid. The structure, as I mentioned, and the wording of some blessings date back to the Talmud. They appear in the Talmud, which makes them about, 1,800, 2,000 years old. And so in the fixed sense, when you have blessing language that's 1,800 years old, it's harder to change it. That's why the prayer books only get bigger and heavier. There's no such thing as a rabbinic eraser. You probably are aware of some of the choreography, and again, I apologize if it's boring in its review, but I'm repeating it all for a reason. So there are 3 sections to the Amidah, and before we even begin the fixed part of the liturgy, we step forward, and you may have seen people take steps back, or one step back in order to step forward, and there's really specific choreography. We always go forward on the right foot, which annoys me because I'm left-handed. So you go forward with the right foot, 3 steps. Some people take those steps according to the words Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. Some people. That's not really part of the liturgy, but that's sort of the preamble. Okay, so then we get into the liturgy. There are 3 sections. The first section, it consists of 3 blessings, and they are shevach, praise. Because as we approach God and draw closer to God, we start with praise, butter God up. There's a middle section, which I'll come back to in a minute, and the last 3 or 2 blessings are gratitude, hoda'ah, or thanksgiving. Because after we finish what the business of the middle of the Amidah, we step away and we give thanks. On weekdays, that middle section is petition. We ask for things, and it includes 13 bakashot, 13 specific requests, and that part is in the Talmud already, sort of. 12 or 13 of them are already mentioned in the Talmud. But on Shabbat, we do it differently. So during the week, it's sometimes also called the Shmona Esrei because it was 18 blessings, but it's really 19 now. Remember, no eraser. On Shabbat, when we don't ask for specific things, the middle section is 1 blessing. 3 at the beginning, 3 at the end. Praise, gratitude, and in the middle, Kiddushat Hayom, sanctification of the day. And the rabbis, they do love the numerology and the gematria. 7 blessings in the Shabbat Amidah. It's perfection. 6 days of creation, and the 7th day, Shabbat, we rest. At the end of the fixed liturgy, that's where we have time for private meditation. That's known often as Avodat Halev, service of the heart. And when we're finished with our service of the heart, what's inside us, those private prayers, we take 3 steps back to show our reluctance that we're finished with this moment of deep connection with God and community. And you guessed it, go back a gush, left, 2, 3. And now we're going to get to the part that's relevant. I know, she's like, why is she telling us all this? I'm glad it's interesting. My personal practice is then, some people, they go back on Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. That's at the end, always with a prayer for peace. My personal practice, don't ask me why, I guess my father, my grandfather, I don't know, not my grandfather, did it this way. Then you take 3 tinier steps forward, really reluctant to let go of this moment, and I go up on my tippy toes. It's like a Kedusha thing, don't ask. But before I do all of that, or I guess when I'm walking forward, this is the part I really want you to know. It has been my practice for 30 years, 31 years, 28 for the second part, to add specific personal mention, and I'm not going to get into the details, of prayers for me, for myself, for my spouse, and my 3 children who are now grown. And this is the really important part. I have served in many different congregations and school communities and been the rabbi in the prayers. Sometimes it was like, 7th and 8th graders leading the prayers. And it doesn't matter. In every single place I have been told that I am either too fast, and I'm criticized for rushing through my Amidah and not being a good example, right, for everybody else in the congregation, or I've been told that I'm too slow. And it's tedious and it's boring, and why do we have to wait for the rabbi to finish before we can move on? Sometimes I have been told those things by the same person at different times. So this is what I'm going to tell you. You have it really good here. Because while I'm finishing my personal and private prayers and my Amidah and doing all the bowing and the moving and the stepping, you're invited to do what you need to do. You can join me in offering your own avodat halev, your own prayers from your heart. You can relax. You can relax your mind, your body, your spirit, in the spirit of Shabbat. You can just sit and take some deep breaths and let the beautiful piano playing of Ira wash over you. Ira and I have a sign, we have a signal, and he's going to be watching me. I took off my glasses because they were fogging up, so I can't see him. And he's going to know when I'm ready for him to start L'Dor Vador, right? That's what we're doing? L'Dor Vador. So he'll know when to transition from the beautiful piece of music that he's playing to the end of the Amidah, the public end of the Amidah. And I will not make any announcements or call any pages from one moment from now until after the Amidah is finished. And the reason is, it's a time for personal prayer. And so I beg indulgence of you, and I offer you the opportunity to either praise or criticize me at the Oneg, but I ask of you that I'm going to give you that time, and that you give me that time, and that we just take a moment. Services haven't been that long, and I promise that my words of wisdom, as Ira wrote them on the sheet, will be very short, since I've done several kavanot now. If you are ready, please turn the page to page 46 as we rise for the beginning, the preamble to our Amidah, Adonai Sfatai.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav L'Hoshia, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asirim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidam Elach, Melech Mimi, Tumechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our heart, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part, we are blessed and we are holy, we are children of your way, with the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say, Ledor vador nagigod lecha, Ledor vador, we protect this chain, from generation to generation, Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name. Ledor vador, lagid god lecha, Ledor vador, we protect this chain, from generation to generation, Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name.
Now we turn ahead to page 253 as we prepare to recite the Mishaberach L'Cholim, a prayer for those who are in need of healing. And some of you may have noticed that I've moved it to after the Amidah so that we can preserve the integrity, the sanctity of the Amidah moment, and now give this moment its own sanctity. That's the thinking behind it. So now you know the secret sauce. I'm going to read the names of everyone, and it's a long list, and I'll also invite anyone who wants to add a name at the end. We'll just kind of all say it at once. Harvey, and I apologize in advance. I have pronunciation notes, and if I mispronounce any of the names, please let me know during the week. Thanks. Harvey Adelsky, Sherry Alexander, Richard Barker, Betty Berlin, Lynn Birmingham, Raven Chong, Ray Clark, Bruce Cohen, Isidore Cohen, Mary Davis, Stephen Despens, Clark Devoskin, Mitch Earl, Steve Eckber, Beth Einig, Aaron and Roz Feingold, Kathleen Forch, Dr. Bruce Fox, Bobby Fredrickson, Lauren Friedman, Bob Gantz, Max Gantz, Morris Golden, Sandy Golden, Gloria Goldsmith, Tom Gorgone, Rick Hack, George Campbell Hamilton, Jody Hendler, Braden Hink, Helene Holtzman, Blake Hull, Laura Jacoby, John Jenkins, Linda Jenkins, Shannon Jenkins, Al Justin, Lila Kaminer, Jackie Kapstein, Marilyn Krasnov, Cindy Levine, Ken Levy, Marcia Levy, Dorothy London, Bob Lucisano, Liz Lyman, Lisa Macklin, Jody Batmasha, Roberto Maybisher, Yardane Meir Ben Yitzchak, Arnold Meyer, Phyllis Mix, Lowell Morrow, Shayna Batmoshe, Greg Mosher, Elena Mulliken, Mark Newman, Arthur Newman, Jacob Newman, Joyce Newman, Lynn Prisant, Kathy Rasnick, David Reckman, Barbara Rittman, Deborah Rowan, Barry Rosenblatt, Norman Rosenblatt, Sherry Rosenblum, Patty Savage, Donald Schaefer, Brian Schneider, Eric Schuster, Jillian Sekulis, Lee Sexton, Nancy Shallett, Sharon Scherer, Peggy Sharp, Judith Siegel, Carter Silk, Carol Silver, Nicole Aronson Silverman, Dee Singer, Debbie Singerman, Alan Sklarov, Maureen Sklarov, Melissa Smith, Robin Weinstein, Chuck Whitney, Faye Yeager, Paul Zale, Rochelle Zwieben. And if anyone has names to add, please add them now. Leah Bat Mendel, Aaron Ben Yocheved.
Nisheberach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Yimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imoteinu Mekor HaBracha Le'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We have arrived. And I don't mean Rabbi Alter and I have arrived, although we also have arrived. We have arrived at the final chapters of the book of Numbers. In Hebrew, the book of Numbers isn't called Numbers. It's called Bamidbar, in the wilderness. We've been in the wilderness. And the good news is, this week, at the end of the book, we have arrived. I was thinking about where I was when we began reading this book of the Torah. It's about 8 weeks ago, not quite 2 months ago. And I almost can't believe it. I was in Paris. I was walking along the Seine. It's about a half a mile from where I started the bridge at the hotel to get to the Eiffel Tower. And then I was walking around the base of the tower. It was a Shabbat afternoon. And I was looking up, trying not to get dizzy. And I was marveling at what we human beings are capable of, what we can build, what we can accomplish when we work together and we set our minds to it. So we are told in this week's Parsha in Maseh, Parshat Maseh, Numbers 33, verse 2, Vayichtov Moshe et motzaehem lemasehem. And Moses wrote their motzaehem. Motzaehem is like their goings out, their stops, their leavings in their travel. Lemasehem, their stops in their journey, according to God's words. And then the verse ends, and these are their travels and their stops. And it, by the way, flips the script. First it says stops and travels, and then it says travels and stops. It's not important. What's important and interesting to me is that Moses wrote it all down. So all through their journey in the wilderness, the people would arrive at the place that they were going to, and they would set up the camp, right? They would set up their encampment, and they had a lot of stuff. Not just the people and the women, the men, the women, the children, the army, the flocks. They also had all of the ritual objects that they were schlepping with them through the desert. And so they would set it up until God told them it was time to move, or God told Moses, tell the people it's time to move on, pick up all your things, and then they would pack everything up, and they would leave to journey to the next place. And this went on, as you know, for about 40 years. And all throughout, Moses is instructed to record their travel log, which, if you're interested, you can read in the next 47 verses of chapter 33 in Bamidbar. They go something like this: Vayisu me'elim, vayachanu al yamsuf. They traveled from Elim, vayasu, their masehem, vayachanu, and they encamped by the Sea of Reeds. Vayisu miyamsuf, vayachanu b'midbar tzin. So they got up, they traveled from the Sea of Reeds, from Yamsuf, and then they camped at the Midbar, the wilderness of Sin. Vayisu vayachanu, vayisu vayachanu. They traveled and they camped, they traveled and they camped, and this language, this phrase, is repeated 42 times. 42 times in the next 47 verses. I counted just to make sure. Now, even if I had the time to tell you everything that happened to me in the last 2 months, starting with my travels in Paris, ending with my being standing here, even if I had the time to do that tonight, which I don't, I wouldn't, because it would be tedious and boring. I mean, I would find it interesting. I was thinking about this. How many of you remember slides? So, my parents would go on vacation, or my grandparents would go on vacation, and then they would have the slide carousel, and there were hundreds of slides. Don't worry about it. I'll explain it to you at the Oneg. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what I'm talking about. And they would have their friends over, right? That people would have, parties and get-togethers so you could show your slides from your vacation, which I'm guessing was only interesting to the people who were showing the slides at some point. So I'm not going to tell you about my trip to Paris, although I might later if you take me out for coffee. And I'm not going to tell you everything that happened when I got back from my trip to Paris, and then I was supposed to come here, and then I couldn't come here, and then I did come here, and now I'm here. We have arrived. But what I do want to tell you about this, which relates, I think, to the Torah portion, is that I kept a journal the whole time during my travels. And I wrote down everywhere we went, and sometimes when it was a little book, a kind of a little notebook, a little journal, and sometimes it was, crammed in my bag, or I had to check my bag if we were in a museum, and then I would start looking around, the back of the ticket, a napkin, and I was jotting down on slips of paper and the backs of napkins and paper menus, and I was taking pictures of all the plaques and all the street signs, because in Paris, all the streets are named after historical people, and we were actually staying on Émile Zola Street, which was very cool. So I did all of this for the time that I was there, and later when I got home and I collected all of these disparate words and pieces of paper and typed them up, I was able to create a coherent whole out of my journal, and only then was I able to reflect on what I had learned from the experiences in my travel. I think that's what God was trying to get Moses to do, right? Is to kind of write it all down. And it comes out in the book of Bamidbar, in the book of Numbers, it comes out as kind of a hodgepodge of disconnected stories and laws and census data. And most Bible scholars consider this book to be kind of a mess. But I would argue, as does Professor Richard Elliott Friedman at UGA, that the journey itself is the unifying element of the book. And this repetition of language, which includes the chronology and the geography of their itinerary, ties all of the disparate episodes in the wilderness together, and it becomes a coherent journey. So we kind of live our lives this way. We get up in the morning, we do our daily work. Sometimes we're moving forward and making progress. Other times we're walking around in circles. And Edie, if you're here, Edie will tell you that on Friday mornings, I sometimes walk around in circles in the office. It's only when we stop moving on Shabbat that we can stop and reflect and see where we've been. So what do we learn from my travelogue of Paris and the travelogue of our ancestors? I believe what we learn is that there is value in telling the story of our messy, complicated, roundabout lives, the lives that we live Bamidbar in the wilderness. And when we tell the story later, we're trying to make sense out of our experiences. And this is what allows us to move forward and look to the future with a sense of purpose. So my hope and my prayer for us as a community is that as we continue to reflect on where we've been in the past few months, we are always now, from this point, as we enter into the book of Deuteronomy, of Devarim, we are always thinking about where we're going, and it is with joy and excitement about the journey that we will take together. Shabbat Shalom. I covered my sheet. I believe that we are going to rise now and turn to page 282 for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekedu lo liotzer breshit, haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot hadoma, shelo sam chelkeinu kohen, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'nachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, malkei hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'ne'emar, v'hoyo Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo Ushemo, Ushemo Echad.
You may be seated. We turn ahead to page 294. Before we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, I will invite, I'm going to read the names. Again, it's a long list. I'll invite anyone who is here for a yard site. When I say the names of the people that you are remembering, you may rise where you are. And then I'll read also the list of people that we are saying Kaddish for during these 11 months. Louis Abramson, Walter Alina, Harold Benowitz, Eva Berger, Morris Cohen, Rose Cohen, Jory Dietrich, Emma Feit, Lorraine Van Gelderen, Martin Holabar, Gabriel Kirschner, Samuel Krantz, Susan Lanson, Morris Lappin, Catherine Lids, Edna Ray Melnick, Robert Patterson, Murray Rosenblatt, Carolyn Schlenger, Etta Surwater, Pincus Surwater, Samuel Silverman, Donnie Testa, Herbert Waldorf, Jeffrey Warcall, and Lottie Weissman, Paul Grayboff, Evelyn Hausman Morris, Evelyn Gross, Larry Bowman, Jack Mendel, Charlene Jacoby, Barbara Wallen-Kirschner, Stephanie Cooper Schulman, Francine Friedlander, Arlene Maniak, Clyde Teasley, Emily Jane Edelstein, Jeffrey Bruce Seiben, Gordon Goldsmith, Hartley Stephen Spat, David Benowitz, Josh Yellen, Leon Reckman, Robert Shaw, Roger Despens, Elon David Masseri, Betty Besser, Marlene Kaplan, Edith Eckber, Jay Anthony, Marcia Kurtz, Bernice Bunny Mayer, Melody Hudgens, Philip Kaufman, Jessica Berkeley, Eva Rothstein, David Bemis, Henry Meininger, and Bridget Payon. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichrono livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and I ask that we all rise as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish for them. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shmei rabbah, b'alma divrach chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayei uvyamei uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach leolam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shmei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram b'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated, and it is my delight and privilege to invite Sandy Davis, our president, to come up and make some announcements. Shabbat shalom.
First and foremost, I would like to welcome Rabbi Gottfried, Rabbi Alter. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. We are so very pleased that you guys are here. So thank you very much.
Again. Okay.
Okay, you can see our upcoming events in our program handout, and I want to briefly draw your attention to a few items. Help build a house. Builders are still needed for the TKE Habitat for Humanity Build Today this Sunday, July 16th at 1 p.m. in Mableton. No experience or equipment is necessary. You just need to be at least 16 years old. See Paul or Paula Wilson after the service, or email them for more information. There he is, in the flesh. Join the TKE Adult Choir. For anyone who enjoys singing, we need you. Openings for sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses. Wow. Reading music is not required, but singing on key is a plus. Rehearsals for High Holiday Choir participation will begin in August. For more information, please contact Bert Kahn. We're looking forward to welcoming Family Promise to the Doc Lebo Center during the last week of July. We expect to be hosting 2 to 3 families. Please make your end of summer more meaningful and join us for this important volunteer opportunity. For more information and to sign up online, please visit www.kolemeth.net. Please check out kolemeth.net and read the Tekiah on Tuesday mornings to learn more about these activities and everything else going on. Following services, please join us for Oneg in the hall. Oh, social hall. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yasher koach. I think that's it. On my sheet, it says we're finishing with Kiddush and Motzi. Oh. You have you wear many hats here. I don't know what all of your customs are here. I'm going to go ahead and make Kiddush, and I guess I would love to invite, if there's anyone here under the age of bar and bat mitzvah that wants to come up and grab a piece of challah and maybe help me make the motzi? Yeah? Okay. I think it might be wine. It's grape juice? Okay. All right, come on in. No, it's good. All right, come on in close. Savri Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
All right, ready? Everybody grab a side of the plate. Ready? Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, please return your books to the cart.